Friday, October 20th, 2023, in Gardner, Massachusetts. Felt like the kind of fall day New England almost specializes in. Cold, gray, and heavy, with the feeling that winter wasn't far away. Low clouds sat over the city while light drizzle and patches of fog drifted through narrow streets and wooded back roads. Halloween was just days away. Front porches throughout the city were already decorated with pumpkins, hay bales, and orange lights glowing against the early evening darkness. Children across Gardner were deep into fall routines. Football games under stadium lights, soccer practices on damp fields, school events, and the excitement that always seems to build in small towns this time of year as October comes to an end. The autumn day New Englanders know intimately. And like most Fridays in Gardner, life moved quietly. That afternoon, Gardner police were dispatched to a home at 42 Cherry Street. When officers arrived, they were met by 30-year-old Breanne Pennington. According to police records, Brienne explained that her husband, Aaron Pennington, who had reportedly been gone for about a week, had recently contacted her and said he was planning on returning home. The couple had been experiencing serious marital problems, and Brienne was concerned about what might happen next. She wasn't sure what to do.
According to the arrest warrant, they had been having marital issues for some time. I believe Breanne Pennington had a firearm for her own protection, according to the arrest warrant. And Aaron Pennington had been gone for, like you said, I think he went home for a week. And I don't know why he came back, what their plans were. We did hear that she had been thinking of moving back to, I believe it was Texas, and taking the children. So whatever was going on before the murder, it was building to something. Their marriage was certainly on the rocks, in trouble.
Police discussed her options with her, including the possibility of seeking a restraining order against Aaron. After speaking with Brienne and reviewing those options, police officers eventually left the home. At the time, it appeared to be another difficult domestic situation, the kind of call police departments across the country respond to every day. Private, complicated. But no one standing inside that home could have known how quickly everything was about to change. Because in less than 48 hours, Breanne Pennington would be dead inside that same Cherry Street house, and Aaron Pennington would seemingly disappear into the dense woods surrounding Gardner, vanishing without a trace, and triggering what would become one of the largest, most unsettling, and most haunting fugitive investigations in modern Massachusetts history. This is Searching for Answers: The Murder of Breanne Pennington, Part 1. In Massachusetts, history lives on every street corner, in every town center, in every quiet neighborhood. You think you know, but behind some of those places are stories that never really left. Stories of people, families, and moments that have changed entire communities forever. This is Murders in Massachusetts. I'm Jonathan Power, creator, executive producer, and host. Each episode will take a closer look at real cases across the Bay State. Not just what happened, but where it happened, and how it continues to shape the people and places left behind. Because these aren't just headlines, they're part of the towns we call home. And if you find these stories meaningful, be sure to follow the podcast so you always know when new episodes are available. This podcast discusses real crimes, including murder, and in some cases, crimes involving children. These topics may be disturbing for some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Gardner, Massachusetts. To reach it from Boston, you drive west on Route 2, a highway that slowly pulls you away from the pace and pressure of eastern Massachusetts. The farther out you go, the quieter everything becomes. The traffic thins, the lights disappear, the suburbs give way to dense woods, aging mill towns, and long stretches of road where darkness feels heavier than it does closer to the city. Route 2 has a rhythm to it. And eventually, beyond the hills and forests of Worcester County, you arrive in Gardner, a city of roughly 20,000 people in north-central Massachusetts, still reserved, a place tucked between forests and fading mill buildings. But like so many places across New England, Gardner carries a history much deeper than what it appears on the surface. Its story begins in 1764, when settlers first established themselves on what was then rugged rural land. By 1785, Gardner was officially incorporated and named after Colonel Thomas Gardner, a Revolutionary War officer killed during the Battle of Bunker Hill. From the beginning, Gardner was built through labor, through resilience, through generations of people trying to carve their lives out of difficult land in uncertain times. In its earliest years, it was a farming community, isolated, practical, and quiet. But by the early 1800s, something changed. Furniture manufacturing transformed Gardner into an industrial powerhouse. Factories rose across the city, workers poured into town, and by the late 1800s and early 1900s, Gardner had become one of the largest furniture manufacturing centers in the country, producing millions of chairs every year and earning a nickname that still follows the city today, the Chair City. For decades, Gardner thrived. Families often worked in the same factories for generations. Entire neighborhoods revolved around routines built on shift changes, manufacturing schedules, and lifelong familiarity. People knew each other here. Not casually, not superficially, they knew each other's families, their histories, their struggles, their reputations. And maybe nowhere symbolizes that era more than the S.K. Pierce Mansion. Built in 1875 by wealthy furniture manufacturer Sylvester K. Pierce, the enormous Victorian mansion still towers over West Broadway like a monument to Gardner's industrial peak. Nearly 7,000 square feet in elaborate Second Empire-style architecture, the mansion represents wealth, influence, and the ambition of a city booming from industry. But over time, the mansion became known for something else entirely. Stories began to spread. Deaths inside the home, unexplained tragedies, rumors whispered across generations. Eventually, the S.K. Pierce Mansion earned a reputation as one of the most haunted houses in America, featured on paranormal television shows and investigated by ghost hunters from around the world. Visitors have reported shadow figures, footsteps echoing through empty rooms, sudden temperature drops, whispers in the dark, and feeling that they were not alone inside the house. Whether you believe in the paranormal or not, the mansion says something important about Gardner itself. Because Gardner is a city where history lingers, where the past doesn't always stay buried, and where stories, especially dark ones, have a way of surviving long after they should have faded away. Today, Gardner is quieter than it once was. Many of the factories are gone, industrial decline, economic hardship reshaping parts of this city the same way it reshaped mill towns across New England. But the familiarity remained. People still stay here for generations. Families overlap, neighbors know each other, news spreads quickly. But the Penningtons were different. They were still relatively new to Gardner, having lived there only about a year before everything happened. Neighbors saw them, recognized them, but many didn't truly know them beyond brief hello and passing interactions. Much of the family's social life reportedly centered around their church and a smaller, more private circle, which somehow made what happened next feel even more unsettling. Because after Brienne's murder, people began replaying every interaction they had had with the family. Every wave, every conversation, every moment that once seemed ordinary, wondering if there had been signs no one recognized at the time. On the morning of October 22nd, 2023, those questions would begin spreading across Gardner faster than anyone could process them. At first, it seemed like just another police call. A home on Cherry Street, a quiet residential neighborhood, an ordinary Sunday morning in late October. But inside that home, something horrific had happened. 30-year-old Breanne Pennington, known to her family and friends as Breezy, had been shot and killed. Brienne was the mother of 4 children, a woman remembered by loved ones as caring, devoted, and deeply connected to her family. Here's Brienne's aunt, Brenda Hull.
I'm her aunt, so her mother and I grew up very close. We were born very close together, and we're 17 months, I believe, apart. And her mother has mental illness issues, and so I had her a lot. So I had her quite a lot, and then eventually, and my parents had her a lot. Eventually, my parents took her, and then they took Brandon, so her brother. So and they were in Hawaii for, I want to say, 3 years, 2 or 3 years. Then they moved to Riverside, California, where my husband and I were. From that point on, I mean, they lived a couple miles away, and she was with me all the time. We did horses together. So I think between my parents and I, we did a pretty good job getting her raised, and we were very close. My parents were really in love with her, and they spoiled her. So I was kind of more of the parent figure to her. I was the one that was a little more of, I'm going to take your cell phone away. My parents would never inflict a consequence on her, absolutely not. But she was very loved, and she had her mom was a really good mom, actually, when she was little. But when you have mental illness, and then you exacerbate that with alcohol, it doesn't really pan out very well. So it's very hard. It's like you lose the person right before your eyes, and then once in a while that person shows themselves, and then they disappear in the addiction. She has a brother, Brandon, by their father, Cliff, and then my sister Jeannie went to have 2 other children after Brandon and Breezy.
Do you have a favorite memory,
Yeah.
maybe,
So
of Breezy when she was young, or maybe growing up, something that sticks with you over those years?
so fun. She was so fun. She was so cute. I mean, even when she was in her mom's belly, she would respond to my voice. And I was the first one to hold her, and I took her home from the hospital, and I remember being in the hospital, and we got her all dressed up, ready to leave, and um, my sister was out with the nurses filling out paperwork, and I looked at this baby and I said, "I'm so sorry, little girl, that you were born into such a bad situation," because she was not born into a good situation. Um, her dad I think he had just gotten out of jail for growing marijuana in their basement. They lived in a really ratty neighborhood, very crime infested neighborhood. She was just a joy. I mean, I loved that little girl. Oh, I loved that little girl. And so when they moved to Hawaii, and so when they moved to Riverside, I got her horses. So I got her horses, and we did the horse thing quite a lot. Um, and she was a really, really good little rider, and just she was always having friends, right? Always had the friends over. So I would do every weekend, I would do a big bonfire, and all the kids, all her friends, and all the kids would come.
Was that one of her passions, were horses, and then obviously having friends? She was one of the ones that the type of kid that would rather, everyone was gathered at your house and she had all of her friends around her. That was
Yes.
kind of her lifestyle. Yeah.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
1,000%. She was really, I mean, she was really good with the horses. Like, it was like really good. She was like a little adult, right? I'd say, okay, Breezy, I need you to she'd help me hook up because we were breeding the horses. And if you've ever done that, that's an incredible amount of work. And I had our two mares, and I was breeding our two mares. And so it's constantly hooking up and rolling off to the vet. And so I'd say, okay, Breezy, let's get the horses loaded. And so she knew exactly what to do. And she would, guide me in. We'd hook up the trailer to the Suburban, and then she'd load those horses. And she knew exactly how to load the horses, clip them in. She just was really, and she's like 10 years old, 11 years old, and she was loading up those horses, and she was very good at it. And she was just like my little sidekick. She was such fun. She was always with me. She was constantly with me on that farm, and she every time Breezy was around, I guarantee you there were about a gaggle of friends around too. And she had a couple little friends that had horses, and they would just go off and ride all day long. I parent different than my parents. I was a little more strict. I was a little more routined on schedules, and I just was a little more that way. And my parents were very free range. They were very free range. They weren't ever going to get mad at Breezy. They weren't ever going to discipline her at all or tell her no, that's for sure. And not that she really needed it. She was pretty good. But there's a moment, in high school when her behavior was needing some reining in. And
Absolutely.
so there's some struggles with my parents and I on that. So, but other than that, I mean, she was a lot of fun. And for a kid who was subjected to what she was subjected to by her mother and her father at a very young age, she did really well.
What was her life like in the more recent years leading up to, maybe before she met Aaron?
She was going to the community college, and she had decided to move into a house with a couple of girls, and they did that for a little bit, and then I think the girls, I'm not quite sure, but it didn't work out. So she went back home to my parents' house. But she was doing her thing. And then, so she had moved back home, and she was going to go on a mission for a church. She was really planning on going on a mission for our church. And I was so surprised by that. But I thought, well, that'd be such a great experience for her. And so she was really gearing up to getting herself together so that she could serve a mission, which in hindsight, I wish so much that she would have done that. But she met Aaron. So she was going to the single adult ward, which is the congregation for the kids that age that aren't married. And they do a lot of fun social activity things. And so it's a really great place to be when you're at that age. Um, you're with like-minded kids and of the same faith. And so she met Aaron. She saw him, and he was very handsome. He returned from his mission from Peru, and he's this blonde-haired, blue-eyed kid, and Aaron was great. I'm going to tell you, we loved Aaron, and Aaron was wonderful. He was just really, really a kind, laid-back, fun, very, very smart guy. And so she met him, and she uh, brought him I believe I met him first. She brought him to me first. I was at church, and she showed up at church with him to introduce me to him. And the picture of her, and he's laying on the grass with his hands behind his head, and she's kissing him on the cheek. I took that picture, and the first day I met him, and then they went over to my parents' house after that, and she was so happy, and they were really cute together. They were so darn cute together. They were like best little friends. And then, he'd started kind of hearing that she had a lot of boyfriends. She had a lot of boys chasing her in high school. And so he kind of got wind of it, and he didn't really like it. And so he broke up with her for a minute. And And she came to me crying, and she said, "Oh, Aunt Brenda, what am I going to do? Oh, I'm just so sad. I just really love him." And I said, "Well, you want him back?" And she's like, "Well, yeah." I said, "Okay, here's what you're going to do. You're going to ignore him, and you're going to date all the boys. Go date them all of them." She said, "What?" I said, "Yep, that's what you're going to do. You're going to you just cannot be bothered by it. You can't be bothered by it. Don't you sit in here and cry. You're going to go to every single activity, and you're going to be happy, and you're going to have fun, and you're going to date. And I promise you, he will be back." She was really, I said, "Absolutely." And so she did, and sure thing, he came back, and I said, "Hun, that's these men." I said, "These men, I'm telling you, that's what you have to do with them. Just move on and be unbothered, and then they'll realize, oh, hey, maybe that wasn't such a good move on my part." So he did. He came back, and yeah, and they got engaged. I want to say not even 6 months after they started dating. Yeah.
Okay.
And so, yep, it was very fast. But in the LDS world, that's kind of, a little routine and a little normal.
How was their relationship from the outside? Everything seemed okay. You didn't notice
Oh yeah,
anything, yeah, because you
right.
yes,
So, when I did start noticing something
okay,
was they came to stay with me um, on their visit before leaving for um, Okinawa, and she had yeah, it was just before they were leaving for Okinawa. They stayed because yeah, well, going back, they got married, and they were super cute in doing their wedding. That it was very cute. But uh, you know, there were some things in the beginning that really concerned me. And one thing I found out after the fact, because I read it in her journal when I went through the house, was that she didn't have running water, and she was having to drive down to his dad's house to do laundry and take a shower. And she had a little baby, and I was horrified. And I thought, well, why in the world didn't she call me? I mean, I would have paid her water bill. I just was shocked. Like, why my parents didn't pay the water bill? Why did his parents didn't pay the water bill? Why she didn't call me to pay the water bill? Like, that was just like, wow. You know what I mean? Um, so anyway, but moving, and I'll go backwards too. So she also stayed with me. I went and picked them up because they were in Texas. Yeah, they were in Texas at this point. Avery was maybe a year old. Yeah, it was her first year birthday. It was her 1 year birthday. And so I picked them up at LAX, and they came, stayed with me, and we had her first birthday at my house, and his whole family was at my house and having this party for the baby, which was really nice. But that family is they're very close, the dad and the brothers, and they just do everything together. And I wanted to spend time with Breezy, and I kept telling Aaron, just go be with your family. Let me be with Breezy, Why does she have to be with you constantly with your family? That was just so obnoxious, completely obnoxious. Like, he just had to have her there with him, with this family. And well, what about her family? Right? And so I didn't much like that. And then, but the time before, when they were going to go to Okinawa, it was the same scenario. Aaron, go be with your family. Let her stay with me. We want to spend time together, But he was just hell bent on going and rushing off and being with his family, and she had to come with him, and you know, and I absolutely didn't like that. So how they ended up in Gardner was they started out in Southern California, and get this, so he was working for his dad, and his
okay,
dad owns a pest business, like a bug spray business.
mm-hmm.
And Aaron was going and working for his dad, and his dad paid him in cash. And Aaron, so we were talking about this because he's starting to realize, hey, I got to figure out how to provide for this family because they've got Avery at this point. And I'm like, Aaron, have you got to be kidding me? Your dad is screwing you. And I go, is he even paying you minimum wage? Is he paying your Social Security? Is he paying your taxes? No. I'm like, he is screwing you over so bad. I said, Aaron, absolutely not. You need to get a real employer. I said, first of all, it is very important from the time you start working, guess what? Social Security keeps a record of what you earn and what you pay into Social Security, and that directly affects how much you get in retirement. He didn't even know that. I said, yeah, your dad is screwing you over. He's not doing you any favors. You need to go get a real job that actually gives you a pay stub, okay? And itemizes what they take out. Does he pay for unemployment? No. Does he pay for disability? No. Okay, so if your dad goes under and you need to go get unemployment, guess what? There's no unemployment for you. If you get hurt and you're disabled, there's no disability for you. This is not good for you, Aaron. You need a real employer. And that kind of opened his eyes, but nobody ever sat down and told him about that. Like, these are conversations that my dad had with me, to educate me about, hey, you've got to do taxes and you've got to have Social Security taken out. And you have to have all these things, right? And, I mean, he's sending his son out into the world without a basic knowledge of, and this is supposed to be a businessman. So Aaron was doing that, and he was driving, delivering pizzas at night to make ends meet to take care of Breezy while she's pregnant and all that with Avery. And then so I said, no, this isn't going to work for you, Aaron. You got to come up with something different. So he started talking to my dad. My dad is the one who leaned him towards, hey, let's get in the military. They'll take care of you. They'll give you a skill. They'll take care of your needs, take care of your family, and so Aaron went to Texas. They lived with my parents in Texas while he was going through the Air Force Academy. So they went to Texas to be with my parents so Breezy and the baby, and then Aaron went off to the Air Force Academy. Yeah, and so, and then he got stationed in Okinawa. So they went from Texas to Okinawa. Aaron started having some issues in Okinawa, and he was really homesick for his family. Aaron never did well when he was away from his family. So he's really homesick for his family, and then he got orders to go to Germany. So they were going to go to Germany, and Breezy was really excited to go to Germany. And Aaron didn't want to go to Germany because he was really tired. He's really homesick, and he wanted to be stateside, closer to his family and his brothers. And so he started his, I'm having, depression. Oh, I'm feeling suicidal. Oh, this, that, and the other thing. And finally they said, we're not sending you to Germany. We're sending you stateside. We don't have the facilities for your mental illness issues overseas. So they canceled his orders to Germany and sent him to Arizona. And Breezy was mad. She was really disappointed. She was really disappointed in that. She thought it would have been great for the kids. It would have been great for their family to go and have that experience. So she's more adventuresome than he. But yeah, so that's how they ended up in Tucson. Yeah, down there in Tucson, Arizona. And they were doing pretty good in Arizona. They bought a really cute house in Arizona, and they had Chippy at that point, and then they had Heidi in Arizona. And so then Aaron wanted to get out of the military. So he got a job. He, didn't re-enlist, and he got a job at with Raytheon in Massachusetts. That's how they ended up in Gardner.
But as devastating as the murder itself was, the mystery surrounding what happened next would not just grip Gardner, but the entire state of Massachusetts. Because Brienne's husband, Aaron Pennington, was gone. Authorities say he left the home that morning driving his white BMW. Almost immediately, investigators began searching for him, warning the public that he could be armed and dangerous. he vanished?
My name is Steve Landry. I'm a reporter for the Gardner News.
And Steve, you live in Gardner itself?
Yes, I live in Gardner. I've lived here almost my entire life.
And how long have you been with the Gardner News?
I have been with the Gardner News off and on for the past 15 years.
What was the community's, initial response to such a tragedy like this?
Well, I think obviously the first response, the initial response was one of shock. Um, this sort of thing doesn't happen often in Gardner. So for it to happen on a quiet Sunday morning in October, it really shocked the community. Um, and the days that followed, the shock gave way to fear and anxiety because all we knew and all officials were telling us was that he had fled the scene and was on the loose. Um, and one interesting aspect is this happened a few a week or so before Halloween. So anyone with kids in the town, when Halloween came along, and Aaron Pennington was still on the loose as far as we knew, there was real concern about sending kids out trick or treating.
Thank you for listening to Murders in Massachusetts. If this episode resonated with you, please consider sharing it. And be sure to follow or hit the like button so you always know when new episodes are released. Multi-part episodes will be released on a weekly basis, while standalone episodes will follow a bi-weekly release schedule. You can always find more information about this or any episode at murdersinma.com. If you have any insight into a case or a story you believe should be told, you can reach me directly at murdersinmapodcasts@gmail.com. And as always, remember the stories we tell here are about real people, real families, and communities that continue to carry them. I'm Jonathan Power. We'll see you next time.